All right, Greg, I put my money where your mouth is.
Hey, phrasing!
Yeah, I definitely could have phrased that better. What's up, motivators? Welcome back. It's Kevin. This is Purebullfit, where we try to debunk fitness-related bullcrap, the bullfit, if you will, demystify fitness, and give you actionable information so you can live a longer, better quality life. I am a personal health coach. I'm a fitness content creator, a former Marine, and now a published author. You can check out that book at purebullfit.com if you're interested. No pressure. Testosterone seems to be the talk of the town ever since I stopped making videos over a year ago, and it continues to be. It seems like you can't spit without hitting a video with some content creator or fitness influencer claiming it is the latest, greatest thing for your natty gains, and even comparing it in efficacy to certain performance-enhancing drugs, saying it's equal to or even better than some of those things. Why do we keep hearing about it? Well, mainly because those same content creators and fitness influencers won't shut the hell up about it. I haven't seen this much overblown hype with questionable substance since Game of Thrones Season 8. What a dumpster fire. One of the most common voices you're going to hear talk about it is, of course, Greg Doucette, owner of HLTL supplements, and the answer to the question, what would Gilbert Gottfried's metaverse avatar look like? Editor Kevin here, and it came to my attention as I was putting this video together that Gilbert Gottfried actually passed back on April 12th. To those who are directly affected by his passing, you have my condolences. I am so sorry for your loss. Gilbert was a fixture in the comedy community for decades, and he brought us much more than simply the voice of Iago, one of my favorite cartoon characters. The world is a little less funny without you, and I am so sorry to see you gone. Rest in peace, Gilbert. Now, while this video is mainly about the ubiquitous seeming supplement, I am going to talk a fair bit about Greg Doucette. So I want to do something that I don't see enough people doing, and something I'd like to see more people doing at the outset of this video. I'm going to acknowledge and explain my bias. I do not dislike Greg Doucette, but I'm also not a huge fan of his content, even though recently I really feel like it's headed in the right direction, particularly around the subjects of people achieving healthy goals, approaching it in an attainable and sustainable manner, talking about actively dissuading people from using PEDs, something I think he's doing significantly better than he did in the past. A lot of things are definitely headed in the right direction. Even though I feel like some of the ways that he communicates his point, or particularly, as I'll talk about later, markets his products, seems overly dramatic, it seems manufactured outrage at times, and it seems like it's designed to get as much attention as possible, as opposed to, and sometimes at the sacrifice of, actual substance in his content. So on the one hand, I do want to hear more about how to set healthy goals, how to approach them, his philosophies on that, how to accept yourself as you are, but also want more for yourself at the same time. But do I want to hear him postulate on how a 20-something-year-old woman should set her own boundaries for when and where to be approached like a gas station? No, I do not. At all. That said, I don't really buy into all of the negative character attacks, conspiracies about his past, nor do I vilify him because he was caught using PEDs as a bodybuilder, something that an enormous amount of bodybuilders do. Greg is flamboyant as a salesman whose delivery and approach is a little over the top for my taste. I do not take what he says at face value, but that doesn't mean that what he says isn't worth considering. With my bias in mind, let's get into it. My initial thoughts about the potential of testosterone fall in line with the things expressed by Jeff Nipper, doctors Eric Helms and Eric Trexler, along with others, and that's extremely skeptical since there does not seem to be a sound body or even a relatively substantive body of research that demonstrates efficacy. Now, that's not a knock at all on anybody who wants to try it, especially since by all available information now, the risk is currently low or non-existent. And that's the best time to try something that may potentially have some small amount of effect, is if the known risk is small or non-existent. The worst thing that can happen to you is you take a hit to your pocketbook by all the information that we currently have. Now, while I admit some small amount of personal curiosity, I'm mainly just tired of hearing about it from the community and getting asked, is there anything to this? Does it work? So that's the question of the day. Does it work?
Does testosterone build muscle? Maybe, maybe not.
60 days ago, I set out to find out, and as I said at the beginning, I was extremely skeptical. 10, 15 years ago, we were already talking about ecdie steroids, and they did not have an effect. They did not live up to the hype, so I expected this to be no different, especially since there's no definitive research to that end at this point. But since there was low risk, I tried it anyway, and the answer is in. It is clear, and I'm not going to make you wait for it. Yeah, it had an effect. I was wrong, and I'm going to have to eat some humble pie on this one. Holy shit. Humble pie is amazing. God. Seriously, more of you should try this. It's it's delicious to be wrong. And accountable. I know that sounds bitter, but it's really good. You should try it. Yeah. So we're going to get into the project that I ran and the results that I got out of it. But before we do that, I want to make it really, really clear. I was in no way consulted, paid, asked to do this. I paid for the supplements myself. I started this project back on February 13th because the people in the community were still asking me about it almost a year later. And for my personal reasons, which I'll get into a little bit later, I was curious myself. I am not interested in getting like a collab or a response video or any of the rest of that. This video is for my community, and it's to answer your questions and it's to share my experience. Also, I want to make it abundantly clear that a personal project is not the same thing as an experiment. These testimonials that you see all of these content creators put out are flawed at best. You do not see them accounting for confounding factors, things that might be giving them false positives or negatives. I've done my best to account for these things, and I'll explain how. But our little projects are not science, okay? They should not be put on the same level. We should not take our anecdotal experience and put that on the same level as legitimately conducted research. It's disingenuous. And most of the people who are doing it are doing so they can legitimize a product or something that they're selling or have an affiliate code for so that they can personally benefit. I do not have an affiliate code. I will not ask or accept an affiliate code. This was to answer questions. So with all of that in mind, let's move forward. So on February 13th, we started this project, and I took 3 metrics to establish a baseline. The first one was just my body weight, 273.6 pounds, and that's about 22, 23 pounds heavier than my happy, highest performing weight where I look, I like how I feel, and I like how strong I am. There are reasons for how I got to that weight and what I've been doing about it, and I'll explain that later in the video or in another video altogether. But that's the starting weight, very basic. The other thing that I did was I took tape measure of various parts of my body listed here. Those are the starting measurements. And I did that because, well, before and after pictures they're just very unreliable. You shouldn't just see before and after pictures and believe them because they're often manipulated heavily. I don't have any faith in them. I don't do them. DEXA scan, that also has a variance that I can't control. I can't account for it. And even the guy who makes the supplement says not a terribly reliable way to measure body composition. But if I show an increase in the areas of my body that hold muscle and a decrease in the area of the parts of my body that hold fat, well, that suggests that a body composition shift in a favorable direction is being made. So that's why I went with that. And we did see some change there, which I'll show you in the results section. Now, I went with the hack squat and the pause bench press for the strength metric, specifically because I know that no matter how bad my chronic pain is, my back spasms, my joint pain, the other obstacles that I have to work around in order to stay fit or get fit, or in this case, return to fit, those are 2 exercises that I can consistently do no matter how bad my situation is. So they are something I can reliably do at the start and at the finish. Right here, we see a 365-pound pause bench, a pause bench of 365 pounds, and a hack squat of 545 pounds. I originally listed this on Instagram as 590 pounds. I counted wrong. I've gone back, counted again. It was 545 pounds. Now that makes the increase I saw in strength even more significant now that I think about it. But I am only just realizing that this now as I'm recording it. There was already an increase in performance there, but as I'm sitting here right now, it was a lot more. Now, for the entirety of this 60 days, I have been taking 3 pills a day as directed on the back of the bottle. I know that some folks have been taking as many as 6 or 8, but there is currently no reason to believe that more actually is better. I know that it just makes sense, but there's no reason to believe it yet. We don't even fully understand the proposed mechanisms of action, such as stimulating estrogen beta receptors. Now, If you heard the words estrogen and beta and immediately assumed this can't have anything to do with building muscle, that's beta, that's estrogen, that's some soy boy energy, you should probably step away from this video. I'm confused how the hell you got here in the first place. You might want to take a breath, educate yourself, and then come back to the rest of the video when you're ready, which is not now. My primary reason for not trying 6 is that I began to see effects pretty early on with 3, and this was answering my questions, and frankly, I'm not made out of money. I'm not so curious that I wanted to empty my wallet just to see if more was better.
Out my wallet because I just haven't seen any convincing evidence at all.
Imagine this guy's making millions of dollars and he thinks he can't afford to take testosterone.
No, that's not a very good argument in my opinion, and I know that it was originally directed at Jeff Nippard, but I'm not $120 a month curious to find out if 6 is better than 3. Sorry, man. All right, so after establishing our baseline, the next sensible step was to establish consistency across as many areas as possible so that any changes that we saw, we could fairly attribute to the new factor, the Turk builder. So what we did is I have consistently been taking the same supplements, magnesium, zinc, and protein, and an herbal supplement for focus, energy, and whatnot. On top of that, my sleep is 7 to 8 hours every single night. I go to bed at 11 p.m. I wake up at 7 a.m. every single morning. I keep that consistent. It has helped tremendously in staying sane. My food intake is the same. I eat between 650 and 750 calories per meal. I have 4 meals. I have about 40 to 50 grams of protein per meal, all consistent across the board. At this point, any changes that we see in my appetite, in my performance, in my energy, in my recovery, can fairly be influenced or attributed to the Turk builder. And boy, did we see a difference. At the beginning, I was working out 4 days a week, planned, but on average, it was about 3.5 because every other week I would have a bad pain day due to my chronic pain, my nerve conditions, the issues that I have with my joints, and I just wouldn't be able to work out. We saw that increase dramatically. Like within a week or two, I felt ready, recovered to train nearly every single day. I'm not exaggerating. I am so cognizant of how that sounds, but I did feel recovered enough to train every day. I didn't, but I did increase my training frequency to 5 days and a 6th day by the end of the 2 months. I felt good enough to train every single day. I did see some changes in my body. Here are the new measurements. As you can see, I definitely saw changes in my body. My glutes grew, my arms grew, my legs grew, my waist shrunk, and strangely, my chest didn't get any bigger. I was convinced my chest was going to get bigger because performance in pressing movements dramatically increased. So I'm kind of confused why that didn't get bigger, but everything else did. My weight, however, stayed almost exactly the same. I weighed in at 272.1. I lost about 1.5 pounds in 2 months. So a clear body composition shift had occurred over that time, but I more or less maintained weight. Now my hunger increased a little bit, and I feel like if I had eaten more, if I was willing to put on more weight, I might have put on more muscle and more strength, but I don't know that for sure. All I know is I was a little bit hungrier. I consistently felt recovered. I felt like I could eat more food, but I wanted to keep that factor consistent just to make sure that I wasn't, screwing the entire project up. And lastly, the performance that I saw on my strength metrics was pretty significant. By the end of this, I hit a 390-pound pause rep, and I feel like the pause rep on 390 was actually better than the one at 365. I felt like I had a little bit left in the tank, but I didn't want to push it. I didn't want to fail at anything, and a 25-pound increase in 2 months on my bench press, my pause bench, was significant enough. On the hack squat, we came in at 650 pounds, which after redoing the math of the original lift is a 105-pound increase in my hack squat. The only reason I did not go for more on the hack squat on that day is I just didn't feel like my knee could take it. I got a little swelling, I got a lot of joint inflammation, and it wasn't worth making that worse to get a bigger number for the purposes of answering this question and making this video. But 105 pounds is enough in 2 months. Inches on my body in the right places, inches off my body in the right places. My weight stayed largely the same. So yes, testosterone, Turk builder in this case, actually works. For me, just because I'm responsive to something doesn't mean that you're going to be responsive to it. In fact, individual response is one of the major factors that determines whether or not something is going to be efficacious for broad groups of people or just select groups of people. Creatine works for most people. I happen to be very responsive to it, but other people aren't responsive at all. Other things that I respond exceptionally well to are beetroot, magnesium, melatonin. A lot of these supplements like ashwagandha, it really helps me with freaking anxiety and whatnot. Maca root actually really helps me. Things that don't make an appreciable effect on other folks happen to make a big dent for me. Maybe that's because I keep that stuff to a minimum. Maybe it's because I'm lucky and I just happen to be responsive. But I do not think that you should use my experience in this personal project to determine whether or not you should try it as well. You have to do a risk-reward evaluation for yourself and to determine, is a supplement that does not have a sound body of substantive evidence that supports its efficacy and identifies its mechanism of action something that I want to throw money at in the hopes that I will be responsive to it? That's a decision for you to make. And for me, I still need a very important question answered before I proceed forward with trying to use it again, especially going into a cut where I want to lose about 22 pounds. I want to get back down to 250 where I feel happiest and healthiest. The one confounding factor that I have not been able to rule out is, did my testosterone make a sudden and acute rebound? For those of you who don't know, I suffered an injury at the end of 2020, late August 2020, in a roofing accident. It caused a breach in my abdomen, an inguinal hernia formed. As we found out much later, that inguinal hernia strangled off circulation to my testes and dramatically decreased my ability to produce testosterone. Now, my levels were somewhere around 176, which is about 50 points below what even the VA thinks is too low. And it had contributed aggressively to my depression. I started having invasive thoughts. I lost energy. And that's how I ended up gaining weight. I went from 250, 260, where I was happy, and I crept up slowly to 273 pounds. Why? Why didn't I gain more weight? Well, my eating remained about the same, but my activity decreased. It's almost like calories in versus calories out is actually a thing. I lost strength, I lost motivation, and I've been slowly rebuilding those things. Once we identified what the problem was, we went full bore in trying to fix it naturally because I would very much like to avoid going on HRT. No judgment against people who are on it, but I would rather not be dependent on a thing that I cannot guarantee I will have steady access to. So if I have the ability to solve this problem through sleep, nutrition, and exercise, that's what I want to try and do, and that is what I have been doing. Now, when it was identified that my testosterone was at like 176 NGL, which is 220 or 225 is what the VA said the low end was, I needed to get that up.
Phrasing.
So that's when I established that schedule to make sure that I was getting sleep, I was regularly exercising, and I got my food in a consistent place. That was the foundation for this project. It was already in place and had been for months. And in those months, what I saw through focusing on those things was a dramatic increase in my testosterone to low, but within the normal range. It was between 280 and 300 by the end of that third month of really focusing on it hard. It's been steady since then, but I haven't had it tested, and I won't have it tested again until June, I believe. So I don't know that if I had a sudden increase in that, if function suddenly, magically, after a year of not changing, and only marginally changing after I started addressing it directly, if it just suddenly and magically skyrocketed, well then, yeah, that would explain the benefits, this increase in strength and mood and recovery that I experienced over this time. But I find it really unlikely because these changes didn't actually start until I started taking the testosterone. The timing lines up too perfectly. I really don't think it's the case. But I'd be interested in testing what my current levels are before June or July when I can get those answers, when I can get an update through the VA. If somebody can direct me towards a testing facility that doesn't also have a HRT service, because I don't want HRT. I'm not trying to rely on that. So if there's a testing service out there that you feel like recommending to me where I could just satisfy my curiosity and check off another box to say, nope, turkesterone actually does work, I've satisfied all of my confounding factors that I can account for, then yeah, I'd totally be interested in doing that. So if you've got recommendations, let me know below. Now, one of the possibilities that I didn't mention is whether or not this is actually not turkesterone at all, and it's a spiked supplement. I've heard some people postulate that, oh, it's having an effect because it's really a SARM or something else. I think that's idiotic. I think the people who are saying that don't think at all, because Greg Doucette is an extremely polarizing individual. Most folks love him or hate him. And there are enough people out there that would very easily get their hands on a bottle of this stuff, test it, discover it had something in it that wasn't supposed to be there, and then absolutely ruin his life. He's got entirely too much on the line. And he, in my opinion, while flamboyant and overdramatic and awfully loud, is one of the more straightforward and honest people out there as far as I can tell. I normally don't trust people who tell you themselves that they're trustworthy, but he frequently says he doesn't know something when he doesn't. And when he's talking about a turkesterone supplement that somebody else is talking about, he doesn't just talk about his own product. He mentions whoever there got an affiliate code for in his content as well. And he's one of the only people who does that. He's one of the only people who makes a product and says, I don't know if this works. It might work. It worked for me. I think he's been fairly transparent. So no, I'm not worried at all about this being spiked. I cannot fathom him being that stupid. And frankly, I think the people who are saying that are just saying it because they want something nasty to say. While this is not a guy that I particularly want to collaborate with, I'm not looking to do any videos or have any contact with, and I certainly don't want an affiliate code for his, in my opinion, often overpriced merchandise. I don't think he's that kind of guy. So there you have it, my experience with, in my opinion, on turkesterone. Does it work? How it works? What I did to try and ascertain its effect. I would rate it somewhere above creatine as far as short-term efficacy. But whether it's going to be appropriate for long-term use, we still need more information on, certainly before I open my wallet to it again. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to let me know about it below. If you liked the video, they got a button for that. If you didn't like the video, they got a button for that too. But I hear tell that you guys can't see the dislikes anymore. I just want to point out that the dislike button is to let me know you didn't like it. If you want to let the rest of the world know you didn't like it, go ahead and leave a nasty comment below. They've got lots of room for that. Just no hate speech, okay? And until I see you guys in the next video, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and go fit yourself.